So today I'm going to be going over Section 2 of the Stormwater Pollution Prevention Plan for the state of New Jersey, and we're going to talk about erosion and sediment control and the best management practices for them today. So part 1, we're going to be minimizing disturbed area and protecting natural features and topsoil. So you're basically going to separate your construction area into two parts. One is going to be disturbed areas, areas that you know are going to get disturbed by construction. You're going to explain when they're going to get disturbed and why, by what. Then we're going to go to our protected areas, which are going to be previously mentioned areas that are protected. This could be endangered species. This could be just non-highly erodible surfaces that we don't want to really construct on, or just areas that you know won't be affected by construction but exist within the boundary. And you're basically going to say for the protected parts, you're going to be saying how you're going to keep those areas protected, which is going to include, fences, signs, or just you're going to be telling people on the construction project, don't go near there. And then we're going to go on to phase construction activity. This is kind of like this connects to a part in section 1 where you talked about your general time frame of construction, and you're going to be making a more detailed analysis of that. So instead of just a start and end date, we're going to have a start and end date, and everything in between, what's going to happen on what day or week, a best estimate of the most detailed time frame you can really get. Alright, going on to part 3, we're going to be talking about controlling stormwater flowing onto and through the project. This is where we're going to have detailed plans on how you'll be constructing certain pipes or just other ways to divert water away from certain parts of the site and onto another site, or simply just to retain water at the site, whether that be in a ditch or a storm basin or a berm. And that's really just going to be anything that's going to be used to control runoff. You have to include plans on how you'll be making that, whether it's permanent or whether it'll be temporary during construction, anything like that. And then part 4, we're going to be talking about stabilizing soils where construction has either permanently or partially ceased. And really that's just about making sure the soil is still going to be able to be used after. You don't want to kill the soil through the process of construction and make that part of the environment unlivable for vegetation. So really you're going to want to limit your use of impermeable surfaces when you're talking about stabilizing soil. This is where you're actually going to be seeding whenever you can on construction and trying to make that soil livable. Moving on to part 5 and part 6, I like to lump these together because they're very similar. Part 5 is protect slopes. You're going to be describing controls. This can be erosion control blankets or tactifiers that will be used to protect the slopes on the site. And you're going to want to include design specs for these, exactly how big they are, what material they are, very specific designs for them. And then part 6, very similar to part 5, you're going to be protecting storm drain inlets. You're going to be describing controls. This could be rock-filled bags, gravel, block, basic stuff that's just going to protect any inlets receiving stormwater from the project during the project. And again, you want to include specifications and designs for the controls you'll be using to protect these stormwater inlets. Moving on to part 7 and part 8. Again, these are two very similar sections of the SWPPP, and I'm going to talk about them in unison because of that. Part 7 is establish perimeter controls and sediment barriers. You're going to be describing structures that are going to filter sediment out before it leaves the construction site. And what you use to filter sediment is kind of up to the site manager. This could be silt fences or fiber rolls, but for either, they're going to have to include specifications and details about that. Then going on to part 8, talking about retaining sediment on site. This is kind of what comes after part 7. Basically, what are you going to use to control the sediment that comes off the site? Is it going to be sediment traps or sediment basins? And you're going to have to include the specs for that, which is going to be, the volume, the dimensions of the sediment basin or the sediment trap, and the outlet structure of that. Getting towards the end of section 2 here, we have parts 9 and 10. Now, part 9 is you're going to be describing all your vehicle entrances and exits, and basically procedures that are going to remove accumulated sediment off-site, and stabilization. Now, stabilization means removal of sediment. This is because we don't want sediment to go from on-site to off-site on the roads and then possibly get into surrounding waterways. The name of the game here is really just controlling the sediment, keeping it on-site, or at least keeping it in a basin somewhere off-site. And those stabilization procedures can be, stone pads, wash racks, or both, that are going to wash the tires or the sediment off the car as it leaves the construction site or right before it leaves. And going on to part 10 of section 2, basically you're going to be listing anything, like any best management practices that didn't fit into any of the other categories on section 2. And that about wraps it up for section 2, so stick around for the next video. In section 3, we're going to be talking about good housekeeping best management practices, where we're going to talk really just about general BMPs.